All right, on to the main topic of tonight. So, about a couple months ago, I created a video called Why DEI Detected is Lying to You. And this video got just mass amounts of hate. I mean, like, I got lots and lots of hate on this video. Like, I think that my like ratio was like, it was pretty bad. And I think it just appealed to the wrong audience. It appealed to Chuds who think that DEI is just ruining the entire gaming industry, which is not what's ruining the gaming industry. We'll talk about that in a second. It's not. Let's see what, this website is dumb. Why DEI Detected is lying to you. It got 88 comments. Holy shit, 88 comments. I got 3.4% likes on that. I only got 10 likes on that video. And the video did pretty well. It got over 1,605 views, so I was pretty happy with that. But I got the wrong audience on that video, unfortunately. But it got a lot of hate. Hey, Angela, how you doing? How's your Friday going? Thank you for stopping by. But yeah, anyway, the video got tons of hate. And, you know, basically, Chuds online think that woke gaming is what's ruining gaming these days, and that's not true. Not even close to being true. It's not people like Sweet Baby Inc. or anybody else, you know, who does consulting work for video game developers. That's not what's like ruining gaming. Like, that's so asinine to think. But maybe the DEI people saw the vid. Yeah, they did. They did see the video, and they were not happy about that. I could assure you they were not happy about that video. Or at least internet chuds. When I say internet chuds, I mean like people who most likely hold like right-wing views. People who hold right-wing views on the gaming industry. You know, they don't like woke and censored games. We're going to talk about this Steam group that I found last week, I think. It was posted on Reset Era. And I just want to talk about this Steam group. And they have some really interesting games on here that just... It's really bad. But these Steam groups are just so stupid. They're so stupid. And we're going to talk about God of War Ragnarok, because God of War Ragnarok is on here as well. And which is really bad. So a lot of these games, this is you know, these Steam groups, they don't recommend games because they say they are injecting politics into games. And I think when developers are using things like pronouns or allowing people to choose their own body types, and hairstyles and things like that in the games, I don't think that's really political. I think that's just a way for people to express themselves in the game. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's perfectly fine. You know, like right here, there's a character being addressed by other characters as they, them. And they don't recommend this game based on just that one thing. It's like, who the fuck cares? Like, I'm serious. They address another character as a different pronoun. It's like weird how they attack pronouns in these games. It's so stupid. There's no gender in character creations. You can mix up all body parts like having boobs and hip with a male head. Okay? Like, if people want to express themselves in that way, I don't really see why that's something that bothers people. This isn't political. This shouldn't even be political. It's not a political thing. It's just, I don't understand this. Like, why does this bother them so much? If developers want players to express themselves in the way they see fit, I'm all for it. I think that's great. Uses the term form instead of gender in the character creations. Uses the term form. I have no idea what he's trying to say there. Oh my god, they called a character they, them. Bad game. I know, right? They called a character they, them, and now all of a sudden they don't recommend it. It's injecting politics in the game. This is actually a game I won. It's called Little Known Galaxy. This is kind of like Stardew Valley in space, which interests me, and I actually showed my friend, and she's actually pretty interested in it as well. Uses the term body type instead of gender, and allow female body type to have beard. Who wrote this? It's like a 5-year-old wrote it. Anyway, okay, again, who cares? You know, that whatever. So, okay, uses the term look A, look B instead of male and female for the protagonist. Rumors say they also changed the terms for job classes in the game to be genderless. Again, what's the big deal? Uses the term masculine and feminine instead of male and female. Also allows created characters to use both male and female voices. Again, what's the issue here? Like, it's not politics. If they want players to express themselves in that way, that's fine. Uses, oh, here's another one, Angela. Uses they, them for a singular character. Stop the fucking presses. English localizers added their own agendas into the script. See the link below. Yeah, we're not going to do that. This is false. This story is false. The devs refused to pay and work with SBI and kept making the game the way they wanted. That's not true at all. I think I spoke to the author of an article about what happened with this game. Apparently, some things were said. The lead developer must have said something about this game, or not. He said something. I think it was like sexist or misogynistic about he said something sexist or misogynistic, and I have to go back and see what it was. But anyway, Sweet Baby Inc. does not have that type of power to like strong arm developers. They're not. That's not what they do. They don't strong-arm developers like that. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. They don't have that much power. They're just a consulting agency for when developers want to go and consult them about characters that they may not understand completely, like people in the LGBTQ community or people of color. That's it. There's nothing wrong with that. This one's interesting. This one is Dragon Age: The Veilguard. This is coming out this fall. It's BioWare's new Dragon Age game. And a lot of people are kind of hoping this is like a return of form for BioWare, because BioWare's been kind of like, missing from, hasn't really done a great job of making these games lately. Like Mass Effect Andromeda kind of dropped the ball. But the Dragon Age games have been pretty good. But anyway, this is great. This is great. Has diverse casts in a dark fantasy setting. The developers confirmed all companions are pansexual. See the link below. Has diverse casts in a dark fantasy setting. He might as well, whoever wrote this might as well just write and say, black people aren't allowed to be in a dark fantasy setting, or something stupid like that. Like, who, what? I swear to God, these people give me a headache. They're not, so black people can't be in a dark fantasy game, or people of color can't be in a dark fantasy game. Like, tell me you're racist. This whole sentence reads, tell me you're racist without telling me that you're racist. This is pretty bad. Like, I'm not gonna lie, this is pretty bad. The game has so many DEI-themed characters on the roster, and their pronouns are listed on the character select screen. Well, oh my God, their pronouns are listed on the character select screen. Characters can choose pronouns. Okay, they can choose pronouns. Cool. That's great. Some people like to choose their own pronouns. They want to, be able to express themselves in that way. Oh, this is my favorite one. Silent Hill 2. Female characters have been uglified. Devs also admitted they were making this remake for the modern audience, and it's involved with a consulting company, Hit Detection. So, my pronouns, I'm tired. Female characters have been uglified. Ah, yes, the whole developers want to make ugly characters in games. Dear God in heaven. Like, you could not get me to admit to shit like this. Like, you just could not get me to admit. I don't get it. You guys are just fucking weirdos. Oh, this is my favorite one. We're gonna talk about this one a little extensively, because we're going to talk about this one because I played the game and I absolutely love this game. I'm going to play it on PC and I'm going to stream it sometime this fall when it comes out. But anyway, Kratos became weak and more emotional as they try to blend the line between men and women. They also race swapped a Norse character called Angraboa. And Thor is fat. Jesus Christ. Oh my God, you fucking people. I swear to God. So, okay. So in terms of Kratos being more emotional, they didn't make Kratos more emotional. They just gave him more depth than the angry brute that we saw in the previous God of War games. Now, it's okay if you like that Kratos, but I just think it would be extremely boring if that was the same Kratos from Greek mythology. Did Marvel also make Thor fat? Yeah, for a time. Yeah, in Avengers Endgame, yeah, they made Thor fat. He gained a lot of weight. He ate, a lot of food. But then in Thor: Love and Thunder, he got back into shape. He got back into his incredibly, impossibly high body standards that Chris Hemsworth is known for. Kratos and Atreus struggle with holding. Okay, so making Kratos Kratos had PTSD from what he did in God of War 3 and in God of War 2. He basically went through the entire Greek pantheon, and he killed a lot of gods. Some of those gods were his family. He killed Zeus. Zeus was his father. And somehow he made his way into the Norse realms, into Midgard. And he wanted to, and he probably had a lot of time to sit and think about what he did and the shittiness, the shitty person that he was, that he grew up to be. And he self-reflected on that. And then he met a woman, I think her name was Faye, and they had a kid, Atreus. Or Loki. This is Loki. And it's okay to have characters that we grow and we learn with along the way. I've been playing God of War since the PS2 days, since the very first God of War on the PS2 back in 2005, and I loved that game. That game was amazing. I think David Jaffe said he got the idea from one of those, Jason movies, not the serial killer Jason, like Jason and the Argonauts, and those B-movie Greek movies or whatever. Jason and the Argonauts was a movie that I watched in the second grade, and I remember playing God of War, and it kind of reminded me of being in second grade, learning about Greek mythology, and watching that movie with my classmates. It was pretty good, and I love God of War for that, and I love God of War 1, 2, and 3. I think I played both the PSP games. I did not play God of War Ascension. That wasn't that good. But, this game kind of opens up a different side of Kratos that we haven't seen. Or that character that he grew into. And he's trying to be a better person, and he's trying to grow with his son. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's great that they're showing us a side of this character that is different from the Greek games that we played. He grew up. Well, not just grew up, but he changed. He went through a very traumatic experience brought on by himself, and he did a lot of self-reflection on what happened. At the end of the day, in God of War, the gods are mostly humans with super abilities. That's really all they are. And they can still be killed. They're very hard to kill, but they're very difficult to kill. But they still have emotions, and they still have struggles and feelings, and that's good because it humanizes the characters. I guess you could associate, you could associate with Kratos in the original God of War games, but it's very difficult because he was just an angry brute. I don't think anyone wants to be an angry brute all the time. But let's talk about the race swapping, because they blamed Sony Santa Monica for race swapping a Norse mythology character. Now, before I get into this, this guy up here, Kabrutus, he made a video when God of War was announced for PC. He made a video saying that I don't recommend this game. And what's funny is that before he brought up the reason why he did not want to recommend this game, I knew it was going to have something to do with this character. I knew it, because I remember reading the Wired article, and he said he watched the God of War trailer and he realized things were different. And I figured it had to be the person of color in the trailer. This is the only person of color in the trailer. Boda. Oh, man, I can't not say her name. Anyway, I just paused and I said, please tell me that's the reason why he doesn't recommend this game. And yes, it's the reason why he doesn't recommend this game, because apparently they race swapped this character. Basically, she is a giant in Norse mythology, and she's also mate of Loki. As you can see here, I'm assuming this is her. You know, so when they say race swapping, Angrboda is not a real character in a video game, in real life. She was not a real person. She is a fake character in a fake mythology. This person does not actually exist. They're not race swapping her with anybody. It's not, you know, a replacement thing or anything like that. It's a fake character that they wanted to have, you know, that they wanted to make, you know, they wanted to put give to a person of color, and that's fine. You know, this character, she's not a real person. She's not a real person in Norse history or anything like that. This is just, she's a person, she's a giant, a fake character. She's a giant in Norse mythology. She's not real. It's so asinine to see them, you know, complain about race swapping this character when this isn't even a real person. She's fake. She's not real. So when they complain about the race of her character, it's so stupid. And I know what they're going to say. Well, you know, Norse mythology is predominantly white, and, you know, this is just them replacing white culture with, you know, people of color. That's something that's called the Great Replacement Theory. And it's something that Tucker Carlson has been pushing for decades on his show, well, maybe about a decade, on his show on Fox News. And it's something that, you know, we see the DEI people probably bring up a lot, is that they're replacing, you know, people of color in games where there should be white people. And that's not what's happening. It's not. And it's a very dangerous ideology because you're falling down a right-wing rabbit hole. And it's a bad rabbit hole to go down because you're starting to associate with Nazis and things like that. And yeah, the Nazis would agree with you on that. When you start agreeing with Nazis on shit like this, that's kind of bad. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, that's kind of bad. That means, you know, just because you say I don't agree with the Nazis, I don't like the Nazis, but I do agree with them on this one topic about Angrboda, well, you're kind of halfway there, and it's not a good place to be. You know, maybe you already are there in some cases. Now, in terms of Thor being fat, Thor in Greek mythology, in Norse mythology, he supposedly had a very big appetite. Like, he ate a lot. He was also an alcoholic. He drank a lot. So yeah, I think it kind of makes sense that, yeah, he does have a stomach. People in the Norse mythology subreddit actually did say that they were pretty impressed with this version of Thor. You know, he has red hair, he's big, he's a big character. They actually think that this is actually a very good representation of Thor in the game. And I like the representation of Thor in the game. I thought, you know, they did a very good job. Now, Sony Santa Monica also worked with Sweet Baby Inc. on this game. I don't think it was about writing the character of Angrboda or anything like that. And no, Sweet Baby Inc. did not come in and say, hey, make this character black or anything like that. They didn't do that. This character was designed and created long before, you know, long before they started, you know, creating the character model in the video game. You know, there was probably concept art for this character back when they started doing the first God of War in 2018. So this is not, yeah, Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't come in and say, hey, make this character a person of color. That's not what they do. They don't do that. They don't have that kind of pull. Okay, that's not what happens. The game development, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, game development is a very complex process. It's a very difficult process. And having an outside group come in and tell developers, hey, you have to do this, this, and this, that just upends the entire development process, and that's not how it works. Sony has a very organized system, you know, has a very organized set of developers. They know exactly what they're doing. Yes, they do have crunch time and things like that at Sony Santa Monica probably, and you know, I know Naughty Dog does as well, but, you know, having someone come in and say, well, wait a minute, this character's white, you have to change this to a black character, they don't do that. That requires, like, you know, them to redraw up concept art and remodel the character, and then they have to rig the character for animations, and then they have to get a voice actor for the character to match up with the character in the game. They don't do that, and that's already enough of a complex process. When you look at how good Sony makes their games, how with all the high production quality that they have, them doing that is just, it's asinine to think that they do shit like that, and they don't. A lot of people who complain about stuff like this do not understand the actual development process of video games. And it kind of sucks because, you know, developers I'm sure would love to tell you about creating their game from point A to release. But the thing is, a lot of games sometimes change concepts. They get scope creep. They get, you know, they run into issues with the design of the game, and they run into creative issues and, you know, everything in between. But, you know, but changing up a character like this is not something that they would do. That's not how this character is created. That's not how this character was created. And it sucks that they don't know that, but they have to understand this is not what game developers do. They wanted to put a diverse character in this game because this character is already predominantly white. Thor, Mimir, Atreus, Kratos might be a person of color. Freya, Tyr, I guess these guys are white. Well, he's blue. I don't know. But anyway, there's this game is already filled with a lot of white people in the game, and so what? They wanted to put a person of color in there. It doesn't affect your enjoyment of the game. That's why I don't think we need Pokemon to have VAs in mainline games. Why not, Angela? It takes too much time. No, voice acting doesn't really take too much time or doesn't eat up a lot of the budget. You know what eats up a lot of the budget in game development? Well, if you're PlayStation or Xbox or any, you know, US-based developer, what takes up a lot of money and resources is actually the overhead of developing a game, is actually the head count, developer salaries. Sony Santa Monica, for example, they are located in San Francisco. No, I'm sorry. They're located in Santa Monica, which is near LA. If you know anything about salaries in California, you need to make a good 6-digit salary to live comfortably out in California. Like, I'm talking maybe over $100,000 a year. Probably over 100 grand, probably over 120 grand a year. And so imagine paying hundreds of developers over hundreds of grand a year to live in Santa Monica. Yeah, it's a lot of money. And then they also outsource, and they also get their other studios to help. So really, the overhead is the cost to making a game is mostly in mostly in headcount. It's not in voice acting. Voice acting doesn't really eat up much of the budget. And just so we're on the topic of budgets, neither does Sweet Baby Inc. I'll tell you this right now, Sweet Baby Inc. A CEO's pay at the end of the year is probably triple what they would pay Sweet Baby Inc. to maybe come in and consult. I don't even think Sweet Baby Inc. gets paid that much to consult. A CEO's salary is much more alarming and larger than any consulting company out there. And that's a problem in of itself, because the CEO is just there to make sure the company runs efficiently, and they're not doing any of the heavy lifting, making a game. You know, it's a really shitty thing. But the issue with game development these days isn't, you know, people of color in games. It's not people using pronouns in games. It's the fact that games are getting too expensive to make and dev times are too long. A game that starts development today in 2024 might not see release until 2030. Microsoft unveiled Perfect Dark at the Video Game Awards in 2020, December 2020. That game's probably not going to release until 2026. 6 years. It's dev time. It's scope creep. There's just so many things, but it's not, you know, the LGBTQ community. It's not people of color. It's not, you know, wokeness in games or anything like that. It's not having a political flag in games. It's none of that. It's the fact that developers and even EA is starting to, you know, nickel and dime people for their service games, and that's the stuff that's getting out of hand. There's talk of putting ads in games. Microsoft and Sony just put SSDs into their consoles, which means no loading times. And I'm wondering to myself, how long before developers start saying we need loading times in games to show you ads in games? Can you imagine having an ad in a game? Like, think about that for a second. An advertisement in a game. So, yeah, there's a lot of problems with game development, but it's certainly not this character. Honestly, the thing Sweet Baby Inc. probably helped with is with this character's writing, Freya. There's a big side quest in the in the game with this character talking about how abusive her marriage is with Odin. And it was a very good side quest. I really like that side quest. Very difficult too. It was probably more or less that. It was probably about that, how to write this character, how to tell a story about, different type of marital abuse other than, physical abuse. Because Odin did a lot of emotional abuse to a lot of the people around him. That's why Thor is an alcoholic. Odin made him an alcoholic, and, he drinks because he's not getting, he's not getting the love and affection that he wants from his dad. His dad just views him as a tool for killing, and that's unfortunate. So on to that whole DEI detected website. They decided to, I don't know who this guy is, Marco Corrosion Giovetti. They decided to open up their own news page, and a lot of people don't really like this. And I guess the reason they're going to do this is because they need to find a way to monetize this website. Anytime you make a website, especially one that has a content management system like they do, it's going to need funding because, they need to pay for the servers. Games moving a gamer just like you. Again, our industry is not willing to let it fall. That's why I'm extremely proud to announce that from today on, DEI Detective website will provide a more extensive coverage of all that surrounding the entertainment industry through news, articles, and more. And anyway, some people were complaining that the guy who really started this, Cabrutus, was he basically wants to be a live streamer. He actually, fair is fair. He has more subscribers than me on YouTube. He wants to do things like, live streaming and whatnot, and have a YouTube channel. He was on Asmongold's live stream a few months ago, talking about, the whole DEI detected stuff. And he basically started up his own Buy Me a Coffee. Buy Me a Coffee is basically like a Patreon, but it's basically a Patreon. Fund your creative work, accept support, start membership, set up a shop. It's easier than you think. So if we go to his Buy Me a Coffee, you know how on Patreon they give you certain every tier gives you a certain amount of goodies. Like, okay, if you buy this tier, you get this, this, and this. He literally does not have that. $3 for those who just want to join their part, support me on a monthly basis. $8, support me on a monthly basis. $25, support me on a monthly basis. $60, support me on a monthly basis. $100, support me on a monthly basis. And then we get to the $200 DEI detector, and it's support me on a monthly basis. Request games for me to detect DEI content. These are his rewards, and it's so fucking ridiculous that he has these. This is so ridiculous. This is so ridiculous. I mean, these aren't rewards. This is just like pay me to keep making YouTube videos. With so copy and paste it with jacked up prices? Yes, exactly. Have you ever been to Patreon? Yes. This is exactly what it is. Support me on a monthly basis and request games for me to detect DEI content. Oh my god. This is so terrible. This is so terrible. I can't believe he did this. This is pretty bad. You could tell it's mostly just a grift. You could tell this is all it is. It's a grift. This whole DEI detected bullshit and, looking for wokeness in games. It's all just bullshit. It's not that big of a deal. It's not affecting your enjoyment of the games. People out there on YouTube are telling you that this is affecting your enjoyment of the games, but this isn't what's affecting your enjoyment of the games. There's probably a lot of different things. Maybe you just grew out of the hobby and it's not as fun as it was back when you were a kid. In some ways, I kind of feel that way about, cartoons. I think about 90s Nickelodeon shows a lot. And, Angela, we always quote from the old SpongeBob episodes all the time, and I ain't spending a damn game's worth of money for a Patreon. Yeah, I know, right? I wouldn't do it either. But, my point is that I think for a lot of people out there, they don't enjoy this hobby as much anymore. Maybe because they grew up, and maybe they view the hobby that it was more fun back in the early aughts in the 90s. And look, so what I was about to say about the 90s, I'm always looking back at the 90s and TV shows in the 90s like Friends and The Simpsons, Rugrats, Hey Arnold, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Kenan and Kel, all that. I look at all those shows that came out in the 90s, and I think, man, those shows were so great back in the 90s. They were so much better than what's on TV today. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what, though? Those kids shows today don't really appeal. They're not supposed to appeal to me. They're supposed to appeal to the kids, in those younger age groups. And I think, you look back at it and you always think that, yeah, this was much better when I was a kid. I always go back and think of like how cool Xbox 360 was 10 years ago. No, it wasn't 10 years ago. It was maybe like 15 years ago. And I always think about how cool the 360 was and how ahead of its time it was. And playing Halo 2 and Halo 3 with my friend Luke, and how those were amazing times. Those were like my golden years in gaming. Yeah, I think about that a lot. But, times change. With anything, it changes us. I'm a different gamer than I was back then. I was always into Halo and competitive gaming, and in some ways I kind of continued that through the years. But, I also did still enjoy single-player games, and that's why I've diversified into variety streaming, because I want to play games that I know I'm going to enjoy. And yeah, it may not be as fun as it was. It may not feel as fun as it was back then, but I'm still having a good time. This is my main hobby. I enjoy learning about this industry and reading up on this industry, and hearing about how developers design this game and what their thought process was. And I love learning about that. I studied game design and development in college, and it was a great experience. I loved it. But I think for a lot of gamers out there who think this is ruining gaming, maybe this hobby isn't for you anymore. Times change, and maybe you're just not willing to change with it, or maybe, maybe you're just grown up, and maybe you need to find something else to do. You're thinking back during the golden years of when, hey, this was awesome and it wasn't like this. Maybe it's just best that you keep to that and not worry about using pronouns in games, or using different body types in games, or worrying about race swapping a Norse character who's not even fucking real. None of this is a big issue. And maybe this just isn't for you anymore. Maybe you need to find something else that you love on a day-to-day basis than gaming. I follow an Instagram account, and it's about this guy who's, constantly, he goes into this little room he has, and he just turns on his Xbox 360, and has the nostalgia music playing and things like that. And they're good Instagram videos, but you can't just be that person for the rest of your life. And you can't just think like, hey, this is ruining gaming, and gaming's different nowadays because they're doing all this weird stuff with race and LGBTQ people in games. Then maybe the hobby isn't for you anymore. And maybe you need to move on to something else or grow up. Because even at the end of the day, none of this is ruining society. None of this is ruining gaming. What's ruining gaming is the nickel and diming of your money in service games. It's the long development times. It's the scope creep. It's the idea that, developers just aren't making games like they used to back in the day, because games are much more complex nowadays. I remember being I'm on Reset Era. I love being on Reset Era. But the issue is that some users on the board complain about, we need better CPUs so we can have better world simulation. Okay, well, with that's going to come more dev costs. And then they complain about the dev costs and games going up in prices and developers raising the price of their games. And because the industry isn't growing. Or at least the AAA industry isn't growing. We need to come to an understanding that it's not, people on Reset Era, fair is fair. They understand that DEI stuff is not ruining gaming, but you know, there's a lot of stuff involved in game development that is harming game development these days. And one of it is the industry isn't growing. I've talked about this before. The AAA industry isn't really growing. PlayStation isn't growing. Their games are more expensive to develop, but Sony still sells the same amount of consoles to users every generation. Yeah, they might steal some players from the Xbox camp, but that's not growth. Growth is getting a whole new audience. So, you know, I think the whole DEI, focusing on DEI and it ruining gaming, and DEI in general, they think DEI stuff in general is ruining society. It's not. The biggest issues in society are not the LGBTQ community. It's not people wanting to transition from male to female or from female to male or whatever. It's things like global warming. It's, you know, climate change. It's income inequality. Democracy on the decline in Western civilization. Things like that are far more important than, you know, fucking Angerboa being black or Thor being fat. So, yeah. That's my liberal rant for tonight. Or maybe not a liberal rant, but that's my left-leaning rant for tonight. So, yeah.